I'd like to call to order the September 12th, 2022 Bayport City Council meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adam, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Stenors.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Councilmember Dahl.
Here.
Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
All present.
Great. It takes us to the approval of tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any questions, comments, changes? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion approving tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Connie. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ethan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Takes us to proclamations, commendations, petitions, and announcements. And the August Recycling Award recipient is Jen Hinderly at 119 Inspiration Parkway, who will be awarded for her recycling efforts with a grant funds made possible from Washington County. So thank you very much for your recycling efforts. We will move on to our open forum, where we set aside 15 minutes of the council meeting to discuss topics that are not on tonight's agenda. If anyone would like to approach the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Okay. And we do not have anyone online. Okay, so we can move forward with our consent agenda, including items 1 through 8. The August 1st, 2022 City Council Workshop Meeting Minutes, the August 1st, 2022 City Council Regular Meeting Minutes, the August 22nd, 2022 City Council Workshop Special Meeting Minutes, the August Payables and Receipts, the August Building, Plumbing, Mechanical, and Zoning Permits Report, a special event application from Hometown Hero Outdoors for a fishing event at Lakeside Park on October 8th and 9th, 2022, a donation request from Bayport Community Action League to support Derby Days, the purchase of an R2 replacement light rescue vehicle for the fire department. Any questions, comments regarding the consent agenda? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, John. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Mayor Stenors.
Aye.
Ayes all.
We do not have a public hearing this evening, and we do not have any unfinished business. So that takes us to our rather lengthy list of new business. And we will start out with a consideration of an application submitted by Anderson Corporation to rezone the parcels located at 707, 727, 743, 759 3rd Street North and adjacent entrance to the facility from R2 Single Family Urban to I Industrial. And Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. John, if I could, perfect, get that on the screen. As mentioned, the subject parcels are located along Highway 95, which are outlined in red on this map, adjacent to Anderson Corporation's main facility, and are surrounded by a mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial land uses. The parcels are currently zoned residential, but are presently guided for future industrial land use by the city's comprehensive land use plan. The 4 parcels on the north are vacant and consist of green space or landscaped area, and also provide vehicle access from Highway 95 to the Anderson Corporation employee parking areas. The parcel located furthest south, addressed as 707 3rd Street North, contains an existing single-family house and an accessory detached garage storage building. Anderson has submitted an application requesting that the subject parcels be rezoned from a residential to industrial to reflect consistency with the proposed land use and the zoning of their main facility. The existing house had been previously used for housing interns working at Anderson. However, this use was discontinued over 10 years ago, and because of the state of disrepair, the house is now slated for demolition. Once demolished, the yard area will be restored to be consistent with the adjacent green space that already exists to the north of this parcel. Planting of maple trees along the south lot line of 6th Avenue will also help soften the transition from residential to industrial land use in this area. Anderson would like to retain the existing garage storage building and utilize it for seasonal grounds maintenance equipment for the surrounding area. Because the zoning ordinance does not allow a garage to exist on a property without a house in residential districts, rezoning of the parcel to industrial would be required. Anderson has noted that access to the storage building would be infrequent, which would not conflict with the adjacent residential neighborhood. They will also be painting the exterior of the building to create a cohesive palette with the main facility. The city's future land use map included in the comprehensive plan, the city has guided these parcels for industrial use due to the abandonment of the residential use and anticipated redevelopment by Andersons. Because the proposed application is consistent with this guidance and the proposed use would be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, staff is supportive of rezoning the parcels from residential to industrial, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the application at their meeting on August 22nd and recommended approval. The city did not receive any public comments on the application. At this time, I'd be happy to take any questions from the City Council. Chris, the project representative from Anderson, is also present and available for questions.
So with this change, if something's industrial, they're typically taxed at a higher rate than if it's residential. So is that beneficial to the city to make this change?
I'm going to defer to our administrator because I know he had similar questions and did some research on that.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the commercial and industrial tax rate is higher than the residential rate. And so with this changing from residential zoning to the industrial use, that it will be taxed at a higher rate. Part of the calculation also involves the structures on it though. So the structure will be removed from this, one of the structures. So this will be taxed similar to like an industrial parking lot or green space. So staff did look at the actual tax impact, and it's not, because we're not building a new industrial facility, the taxes aren't going to increase significantly, but it will be taxed higher.
Okay, so at least it's not
It's not a law. It's not a loss. So.
Sarah, can you talk a little bit about, I know, just about impervious coverage and as it relate, or do you know how this affects the Anderson impervious coverage? I mean, it's a pretty small parcel when you consider the entire facility, but this would be, I mean, it's more green space.
Councilmember Dahl, thanks for the question. Yes, this would be a net increase in pervious or green space from the existing conditions. As mentioned, the house will be demolished, so that's an increase right there. And also, they're not improving the parcel with any additional impervious.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything in there that, 25 years from now, they come back and say, well, we want to build something on there? Is that something that we can not have that happen? It sounds like they're trying to do more green space, which is good, so.
Right. Councilmember Gilmore, thanks for the question. Yes, this Anderson Corporation as a whole is probably close to or exceeding the maximum impervious coverage. So we have been working with them on several different projects to offset that. They've done some stormwater improvement projects. So to answer your question specifically about these parcels, the city would have to approve a variance to allow additional impervious surface to be rebuilt in the future.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
No, I have no questions. I think it seems to make perfect sense for everybody involved, so no issues.
Thank you, Michelle. Anything for you, Connie?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Madam Mayor, there is a resolution in the City Council packet for some language when you're ready for a motion.
Perfect. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to adopt a resolution approving the rezoning of 707, 727, 743, 759 3rd Street North and adjacent entrance to Anderson Corporation from R2 Single Family Urban to I Industrial. Is that an I or a 1? An I, as presented.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
Go ahead, Ethan.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Ethan. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Due to my employment situation, I'm employed by Anderson Corporation. I'm not comfortable voting, so I'm going to abstain.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye. Very good. Thank you, John.
4-0-1.
All right. Thank you very much, Sarah. And we're going to move on to item number 2, which is to consider amendments to Appendix B, the zoning of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances related to the regulation of swimming pools and ordinance summary for publication. So, if you'd like to present this topic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the past few months, staff has been working on amendments to the swimming pool ordinance, specifically to update specifications to be consistent with the new building code regulations, as well as make it easier for property owners and contractors to read and understand. In working with the city's building official to make the necessary updates, it was brought to staff's attention that more municipalities are now recognizing a key-operated power locking automatic cover as an acceptable protective safety feature for pools, as opposed to a fence that surrounds the entire pool. Currently, the zoning ordinance recognizes a cover as a suitable alternative in the R1 district, which primarily applies to Point Road. However, when looking at similar lot characteristics in other areas of the city, staff believes it would be appropriate to extend this provision to lots in the R2 district with a minimum area of 35,000 square feet, which is similar to R1 or the Point Road. When considering smaller lots in the downtown area and an inspiration, it was noted that a cover may not be a fitting alternative to a fence, as these areas have several young families with children and are in close proximity to neighboring lots. For these reasons, for these safety and liability reasons, staff is not recommending the cover provision be allowed on less than 35,000 square feet. However, this may be something the city could consider sometime in the future. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the ordinance at their meeting on August 22nd and recommended approval. The city did not receive any public comments on the ordinance, and staff is recommending approval of the amendments as proposed.
Great, thank you. So I did receive one question, and it was just from a resident that already has a pool area, but there isn't any requirement for them to change. If they're already in compliance and they have a fence and they maintain the fence, then there's no changes required.
Madam Mayor, correct. This is just an additional provision for new installation of pools, or if someone who met the minimum requirements and decided they no longer desired a fence and wanted the cover as an alternative, they would be eligible to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I ask you, just because I'm trying to visualize 35, just because we have a pool and I couldn't imagine not having the fence around it, because all it would take is, we're in town with other kids, all it would take is one time for one of us to walk away and forget to put that pool cover on without that fence. So I'm trying to visualize what's 35,000, like an area.
Yeah.
Councilmember Carlson, a traditional lot of record in Bayport is right around 7,000 or 7,500 square feet. So they would need, 4 or 5 lots to meet that minimum requirement of the 35,000. And there are some scattered sites in downtown Bayport that might be close to meeting that requirement, but it would primarily be, again, Point Road, St. Croix Bluffs on Osprey Boulevard. They're in that 90-some thousand square feet. So it's a pretty good lot size that you would need to meet this requirement.
Okay.
And the Homestead Inspiration would mostly not meet this, right?
Councilmember Hanson, yes, they average between 6,000 and about 12,000 square feet. So again, no, those would not be eligible.
Thanks for asking that question, Connie. I
Yeah,
had the
that just
same
makes
question.
me feel a little better,
I
because
was like,
like I say, being a pool owner and having neighborhood kids around,
yeah.
and if you just ran for a second down the road and forgot to put that,
Yeah, a fence is up 24/7,
Yeah.
365
Yeah.
days a year.
so that makes me feel a little better that there isn't as many in town that could, because I know there's several.
That being said, if you've ever had experience with those cover, they're pretty amazing what they support for, to me, what they look like. And like, wow, that's
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not, I guess,
they are nice. But
yeah, I'm not challenging whether the cover would do its job. I'm more challenging whether the homeowner would do
forget
their
to
job.
close it. Yep.
So, but thank you, that helps.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Sarah. Would someone like to make a motion on this topic?
I will. I'll move to adopt an amendment to Appendix B, zoning of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances related to the regulation of swimming pools, and an ordinance summary for publication as presented to us tonight.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. And roll call.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
Ayes all.
Great. Item number 3 is to consider amendments to Chapter 48, the Stormwater Management of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances related to the protection of public waters and chloride reduction, and ordinance summary for publication. Matt.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, on September 14th, 2021, the city was reauthorized to discharge stormwater associated with our MS4. What that means is there was a bunch of unfunded mandates that were required to move forward with that. Most of them were administrative in nature, but this final one before the 12-month period of making corrections ended was actually changing part of the ordinance. It primarily deals with essentially chloride reduction, which would be a major component of adding salt during the winter. And so it requires, there's a couple of requirements. One is how you store a salt, or even the sand for de-icer regulation. It requires that it's either stored indoors or under a cover. Also, there's a component of best management practices of when you transfer it from the storage facility into whatever you're spreading with, say a dump truck. And so the changes are outlined in the memo here and on the ordinance. They're not significant. Sarah and I worked together to actually break the stormwater management ordinance into what we call 2 articles now, just to make it easier, so that otherwise we were adding a weird section at the end of the current ordinance. And so now we have a public waters protection ordinance article and a chloride reduction article. And the chloride reduction part is the stuff that was added. Staff would recommend that we adopt the motion as shown. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Matt?
So do we typically put the penalties right in an article like this, or would it be better to have them referenced somewhere else so you can change the penalty amount? Or is it just, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you get into the, oh my gosh, now we have to increase that and you got to go back and change your whole article? Or is that not even part of, am I misreading that where it says $700?
Yeah, Councilmember Hanson, actually the penalty is actually included in the public works protection one and in the chloride reduction one. So it's just something at the end that we included.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was the best practice for that, so.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Hanson, this typically with these types of enforcement policies, those penalties are within the ordinance itself.
Okay.
Because they're very specific and it's a misdemeanor, punishable, so that's a little different than just a fine, a civil fine that we would apply towards some of the other violations. But that is typical that we do put them within each section that's unique like this.
Okay. And so that's not going to change anytime soon, the fine amount? So that we
No.
won't have to go back?
No, we won't be changing that. If we were to change that, we would be required to change that, like we would with the regular fee schedule. But typically these types of penalties that we have throughout the code are not changed. A lot of it refers to just statutory language that we include for a lot of
Better scale of better pricing. As it turns out, all contractors are very busy, and we have finally gotten 2 quotes here just recently. This morning, in fact, was my second quote that I received. You should all have a Burwald Roofing Company quote that was on your chair. So the roof damage at City Hall was isolated to the metal portion that sits above the council chambers, and there was a skylight that was damaged at pump house number 4. As I said, both of these are covered under the insurance policy, and it's a $2,500 deductible for the event as a whole and not for just location. As I had indicated, we received 2 quotes. The first quote was from Liftbridge Builders, and the second quote was from Burwald Roofing. The Liftbridge Builders quote is obviously less than what the Burwald Roofing portion is. One thing that's missing on the Burwald quote is the park pavilion. So tonight, I'm asking for acceptance for just the City Hall roof and then the skylight replacement on Pump House 4. And then if it's okay with the council, then authorization to move forward with whichever quote is less than once the Burwald Roofing quote comes in for the park pavilion. The current quote from Liftbridge Builders for the park pavilion, as you can see, is $41,094. Adam and I did talk earlier today about possibly holding out and waiting for that price to come down potentially, but we're not sure that it actually will. Based on materials, potentially in a couple of years, stuff could stabilize, but there's a possibility that it won't too. So.
Can we do them separately? Like if we want Burwald to do the skylight and the other company, is that?
And that's not something that I would do separate.
Okay.
Yeah, just because the skylight was, those 2 were kind of together for the quote, and then the park pavilion was essentially separate. So.
Gotcha. Even though they didn't write them up that way.
Right.
Okay. Because it looks like Burwald's skylight is less expensive than
Yes, it is.
Liftbridge Builders skylight, but the other thing is the roof is more expensive the other way around, right? If I'm reading this correctly?
Yeah, and to compare apples to apples, you'll take the alternate 24 gauge
That
roof,
was my
which
next
is
question. Okay.
51,000 from Burwald. So
Because it says copper roof versus, and then an alternate roof, and here it just says
right.
steel replace.
The
Doesn't tell you
Liftbridge,
what it's
I
replacing.
verified with the Liftbridge builder today that it's 24 gauge steel roof
So this
is what was
the
estimated.
alternate
Yep.
that's on the other one. Okay.
Excuse me, Madam
Any
Mayor.
other questions? Oh, go
I
ahead.
just have one comment. The roof, regarding the possibly postponing the shelter roof, that is something that's on our CIP that we were hoping to have done this year. So in addition to that, not wanting to postpone it even further in the hopes that the cost would possibly come down, at some extent, staff had discussed it, as Matt said, and we think it's best to just have it done sooner than later.
That one's been in disrepair for quite some time.
I have a quick question. So it's just literally replacing the skylight. No other roof work needs to be, flashing and all that stuff that would be with the skylight. I guess the reason I ask is I can imagine years ago maybe why we had skylights, but why wouldn't we just roof that over and not have a skylight?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Councilmember Dahl. And the funny thing is that it's not even, usually we have a skylight in a pump house so that you can open it up to pull out the pump. But it's not even in that location to pull out the pump. My guess would be that it's probably easier to replace the skylight at this point than to actually try and re-roof just that section.
Yeah, that's a nominal amount. It was just
Right.
something I was more curious about. Okay, thank you.
I was wondering why we needed the skylight, so that makes more sense now. I thought, is it so if you're in there and there's no light on, you can still see?
All right, any other questions? If not, would someone like to make a motion? And it's actually kind of a 2-part now. If we
Yeah.
It's just breaking out.
deleting
the
the
sh- It's
shelter.
Yeah, so-
it's one motion, but it's allowing you to move forward with the lower quote for the shelter upon its receipt.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Let's accept, okay, so, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Let's accept the quote from Liffridge Builders for replacement of the city hall roof and the skylight, and then authorize city staff to move forward with the lowest responsible bidder for the park pavilion.
can I just say, so moved from what Matt just said, or do we have to literally repeat?
I think that was clear enough.
I think so too. Okay, thank you, Matt.
So we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. And roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
Ayes all.
Item number 5, consider an interim ordinance prohibiting new or expanded uses related to cannabis and ordinance summary for publication. This is over to Adam and our city attorney. So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This item has been something that we've been discussing with the council for the past several months regarding the regulation of THC products. If you recall, back in July, I believe, was of 2022, the Minnesota legislature recent changes to the law went into effect, which allowed the sale of THC products. There's very little regulation from the state law, and the cities are kind of scrambling as to determine how to deal with this change in the law. The city of Stillwater had passed a moratorium last November, kind of I want to say preempting this, but they got ahead of it somehow. And so the League of Minnesota Cities, Metro Cities, as I said, a lot of the other cities have been trying to catch up. What this moratorium does is basically puts a pause and a hold on any new sales or new businesses in the city from opening up a store or a venue for the sale of this product. Coincidentally, we did get an inquiry today about someone interested in possibly opening up a new smoke shop in town. So this would actually, depending on what is being pursued there, if these products are being pursued and that was not clarified in the inquiry, that would be not allowed at this time. Anyone who currently sells them would still be able to continue doing that, but this would basically put a pause on it. The reason for this is to really just give the council some time, as well as the other communities, to determine how it wants to be regulated, if at all. We're not permanently banning them or sanctioning the sale of them, but because the regulation has not been worked out through the whole community. We've been working with the city attorney's office, and this was their recommendation, is to impose this moratorium, and then the council can decide when it wants to. It's only good for 1 year. It expires after a year, and then the council can discuss how to regulate it, as I said, if at all. One of the other things, in talking with Chief Eastman, our goals should be to kind of be in line with the other surrounding communities. That way we don't either attract or force these types of businesses from one community to the other. Tonight I'm not looking to get into the merits of whether or not we regulate it or how to regulate it. Staff has some ideas. We kind of are suggesting possibly a licensing mechanism, the same as we do with our tobacco. But that would be, this is just for the discussion of the moratorium, and to give the city the ability, some breathing room to figure out what we want to do, and so we can help best to do that. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions on the matter.
questions from the council?
Are there any businesses right now that can sell it in Bayport?
We are not aware of any. Well, can sell it or are selling it.
Can sell it, or both.
Yes, so Holiday would be able to. I I don't think that there's any others. There are some restrictions on how it can be sold and where it can be
I know
sold.
salons can sell it.
Coffee shops,
Yep.
vending machines, grocery stores, gas stations, and currently.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the basis?
No bar?
Why?
Can bars sell it?
I think so.
Exclusive liquor stores, Mayor, Council, exclusive liquor stores are the only licensed business that's currently prohibited from selling these products.
Liquor stores, but not bars.
I'm not aware of any bars that are currently selling them. They are licensed by the Alcohol and Gambling Enforcement, and they have been on top of liquor stores and on sale liquor as well. I believe they were still kind of investigating the on-site consumption concept for those products. The way that the AGE addressed it is that THC, specifically beverages, are not specifically defined under the statute for exclusive liquor stores. But other than that, there's no other sort of regulation prohibiting other types of businesses from selling this product.
So the moratorium doesn't really affect, it's only for new, like someone who's existing right now could just go out and start selling it if they wanted to.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting.
And do we have any, I mean, if we as a city chose to say we don't want that, we can't do anything about that, right? I mean, we have to fall underneath the state's minimum guidelines.
We can further restrict it
More
to a higher level. We can be more restrictive than the state, obviously following the regulations. But we have not had the opportunity as a city to discuss that. We haven't had any workshops or any in-depth conversations. So that would be something that, as I said, the council would have the time to then decide and discuss that. Sorry, I was going to say something about. The council can take this up. Staff's recommendation is to not wait indefinitely. Obviously, this moratorium expires within a year, but have a little more time pass before so we can see how the other communities are doing it. I know Stillwater just passed they worked on their ordinance. They obviously have a much different and unique commercial district. They have multiple commercial districts, and they're restricting it to the number of licenses in each area. So each city will have to do it a little bit different, but the overall intent is what we're looking to kind of either mimic or at least be in line and complementary, if not, an outright conflict, which is what we're trying to avoid.
So if someone started in the meantime, what would happen if we came up with a new ordinance around it, but they're already selling it?
They wouldn't be able to under this moratorium.
No, but he said it's only for, like, if someone were to start a whole new business, they couldn't do it. But Holiday, for example, could start selling it. We just got done saying, right?
Yes.
So what would happen if they do start selling it and then we come up with something more restrictive in a year? Does my question make sense?
So
Yes. Do you want me to?
Please.
Okay, Mayor, Council. So that's what we're talking about is nonconformities. So if you do not pass a moratorium and a business starts selling this product, then you can't easily come back and say you can no longer sell this product because
Gotcha.
they're an existing business. There's some wiggle room there potentially depending on how this type of use is defined, but there's definitely concerns if a business starts selling and you choose to prohibit them in the future. What kind of liability that would be if you tried to enforce it upon them.
So it gives us more flexibility to have this moratorium now so that in a year from now, we could enforce something. But if we didn't do this, we wouldn't.
You would be
We
able
might
to
be able
impose
to.
regulations on them.
Okay.
You just couldn't, you likely couldn't prohibit a business that's currently selling from selling something they've been selling.
Okay.
You could put parameters on it, but you couldn't outright prohibit the person who's been doing it very easily.
maybe limit the level of THC in the product or something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Well, that's already limited by
It
the
is
state.
already.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, it makes sense since we don't have a plan. I feel like we
Right.
need to do this,
Yep.
so, give us time to figure it out. And I totally appreciate that we want to look at surrounding communities, even Hudson, you know, they're not Minnesota, but it's real
Well,
easy to go over there and just
Their state.
do stuff. So I don't know what their state is up to over there, but.
Well, and we have such limited retail or business space. I mean, if there was a high population, it would seem disproportionate in our small towns. So I think having the time to think about it is a good idea.
Mayor, Council, if I might make one more recommendation, if you're going to adopt this tonight, Tom emailed them just a minute ago. I've been working on Woodbury's ordinance for regulation of cannabinoids, and I would recommend striking non-intoxicating from the ordinance that you have, simply because intoxicating cannabinoids are legal, and they are different than the word cannabis as defined. And you want to make sure that you're encompassing all cannabinoids, whether they're intoxicating or not. Right now, intoxicating cannabinoids, by my reading, are not encompassed in this.
So it would just read related to cannabis and cannabinoids.
Yes, and there's a couple other uses of non-intoxicating throughout, so it would just be adopting the ordinance with the striking of the use of non-intoxicating throughout.
I like that. Thanks for bringing that up.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I'm good.
Anybody? Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to adopt an interim ordinance prohibiting new or expanded uses related to cannabis and an ordinance summary for publication as presented.
With the,
With including the strike-through.
As amended?
As amended by our attorney.
Okay. Thank you, Connie.
Councilmember.
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. And roll call, please.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
Ayes all.
Okay, that takes us to the topic of the 2023 budget presentation, and there currently are 4 different resolutions underneath to be considered. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one note, there's 3 resolutions and the 4th is actually just an announcement.
Oh, okay.
But yes, there are 4 items. We had a budget workshop immediately preceding the regular meeting. I apologize to the public for the delay and the regular meeting starting. That discussion went long. There were some questions that were unresolved with the budget, I believe, and so my first question to the council is whether or not the council is comfortable at this point with the information that they received and ready to just vote on this tonight, or if the council would like to further discuss any of the other items that were brought up this evening regarding the budget and the levy. I am prepared to present the proposed preliminary budget and levy. But if the council would like to continue discussing it, we had talked about possibly having another meeting later this month. Council had a date to select, or we can conclude it this evening. September 30th is the deadline for submitting the figures to the county.
Based on the workshop discussion and what is the pulse of the council, move forward this evening with some discussion, or have another workshop to go into. I believe it was the CIP in specifically that we wanted to dive into it a little bit deeper. But
if the Madam Mayor, sorry, if I just add one more thing. If the council would like me to present the information and not vote on the CIP, not actually vote on any of it, but I can give some of the presentation.
I think that would be
for the public
very.
and for the council to go over just kind of a summary.
I think that would be great, because then there's a public presentation of the budget. So if would that be okay with the council, even if we then determine?
Yeah, is it the CIP that's in question? To me, it was the
The levy?
Yeah, the
total amount?
levy, yeah, but,
Well, it was- I believe it was both.
Or all, right? And I don't know that we would do it piecemeal, but
The outstanding question, the levy is dependent upon the other factors.
right.
The outstanding question was the amount of capital savings that the council was considering. And so that would be
Affects the city.
that would obviously impact the levy amount. So that,
Okay.
if the council would like, I can go ahead and,
I think that we might as well have the presentation, at least it's
grab my
there for the
mouse.
public. That'd be great.
Sarah will be handing out the printed off presentation. John, if we could queue up the click share, please. Okay, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The preliminary 2023 budget, over the following work sessions that we've had, we've put in quite a few staff hours. Again, tonight we were discussing the budget and the CIP and the levy. After the council does adopt the budget and levy, then in December, and I'll go ahead and make this announcement now, I'll announce it again for number 4, but December 5th is the scheduled Truth and Taxation public meeting. And then after that, the council will decide to vote on the final property tax levy budget and CIP. Again, just a reminder, the council can reduce the levy amount after the preliminary levy is adopted, but it can't increase it. Just a quick overview of the calendar that we've had this year. In June, staff started compiling and distributing the budget information to the different departments. The departments got their budgets back to me in July. Our first budget workshop was July 11th, where we discussed the library budget and levy, as well as some park CIP priorities and other budget priorities. Again, on August 22nd, we had a second workshop and we discussed the general fund department budgets and the proposed levy with the tax impact information that we got from the Washington County. And we also had been discussing the Centennial Village Green Pavilion project that regarding the centennial commemoration. At that meeting, we discussed it quite a bit, but we didn't finalize anything. We did have one of the Councilmember Carlson did have to leave early that evening, and Councilmember Dahl was unfortunately unable to attend. That brings us to tonight. As I said, we had an earlier workshop this evening where we talked about the pavilion project, and we also touched on the parks and other infrastructure CIP issues or outstanding items. At some point before September 30th, the council will adopt the preliminary figures. And again, tonight we are establishing December 5th as the Truth and Taxation public meeting date. The final budget needs to go to the county by December 28th. Once again, an overview of the city's budget. We are a full service city. We provide a very wide range of services. We have our own police and fire protection. We handle the building permits, inspections, and planning and zoning for the city. We offer street maintenance, engineering, administration, library. It's not very common for a city our size to have its own library, but we have beautiful parks. We work on community beautification. We are essentially fully water and sewered. We are working on our storm sewer, which we've identified as needing improvement. We're currently doing a study on the drainage and hope to have that information back later this, possibly in October. It will impact the future CIP as to which projects, the priorities, and the timing. But we have streetlights, we have multiple parking lots and parking facilities. A few significant factors for the 2023 budget. We did have a 0.6% decrease in health insurance rates. The costs did increase a little bit, but the rates themselves were a decrease. The proposed budget does have a 3% contractual increase in wages for union, and then that was extended to the non-union staff as well. One thing that we did not have a lot of control over is our significant increase in the police workers' compensation costs for next year. We are part of the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, and we're part of the statewide pool for police insurance for workers' compensation, and due to the many early retirements and medical retirements, that entire pool was increased. As you can see there, it was almost a doubling of their workers' compensation costs for the police. So that made up a significant portion of that department increase in their budget. No additional employees were requested this year. We are continuing with the full-time police officer and the full-time OSS office support specialist position that were approved earlier this year. So thank you again. The market value increased 15.5% average for the city over 2022 values. Those for residential properties. Another note is that the fiscal disparities contribution actually decreased by 6% this year, which does help our levy amount. It reduces our levy need. So that was a benefit to us. Our local government aid increased by 2.2%, which was just under 14,000. And our Fire Relief Association went up. The state aid we get for fire relief went up 4,000. Again, those are just pass-through funds, so they increase the expenditure column, but they also increase the revenue side. And then our debt service on the fire station bond did go up 4.5%, and that is a scheduled increase. The next page, we did continue the cemetery budget wage allocation. That was something that we added last year. We did not have any wages included in the cemetery budget, but we did start apportioning those, or allocating the actual labor costs to that department. We maintained the funding for the Emerald Ash Borer. We actually increased it by a few $1,000s to add some additional trees that we've identified. One of the things that we have also, that I don't want to say sticks out, but one of the things that the library did request this year was an additional levy increase. That funding is eligible. Whatever we increase is eligible as a match by the Library Foundation. But they requested a $10,000 levy increase, and we were able to accomplish what they were looking to do with a $9,500 library levy increase. The capital savings, we did reduce that a little bit, only because we didn't have as high, the amount of equipment and the number of projects that we were doing in 23 was lower than in 22. So we did decrease that a little bit, by 20%. If you remember this year in 2022, we had the fire truck refurbishment, the ladder truck. We had the front end loader, which both of those, that was about almost $500,000, just those two items alone. So that did, we didn't have a need for that equipment this year, so that was reduced. That's something that we'd been discussing at the workshop, is whether, do we want to continue decreasing that to that level, or do we want to maintain some of that? We maintained the $180,000 for the street reconstruction. We did increase the fire department equipment fund from previous years, not last year. We are, again, limited to the department budget to a 3% cap maximum increase. This next year, we're only scheduled to replace the grass rig, which the council did approve earlier this evening on the consent agenda. But we did increase the baseline capital savings for the fire equipment, as we've been discussing for the past couple of years. We need to contribute more to that. We did schedule one police squad replacement that we are doing once every 3 years. 2023 will be the next scheduled date for that. We are in the Public Works Equipment Fund. We did decrease that again from the cost of the loader back down to previous years, plus the addition of the utility/plow truck it's a 2008 model that we are scheduled to replace. And then the Parks and Recreational Capital Equipment Fund, these are all our park improvement funds. We put $65,000 in there. Last year we had $75,500 that we had talked about doing. So that was reduced a little bit because we weren't doing it was reduced closer to the 2020 level. I'm sorry, 2021 level, but it's still 30,000 more than that used to be. The Cemetery Capital Fund, we maintained the same, as we had no immediate upcoming projects. We've gone over this at the last workshop, but I'm not going to go through all of this. But as you can see, this is just a revenue summary. We did have, under the general government, that does include the property tax levy, which then you'll see it actually has an increase in the revenue. That is because of the levy increase. We did have a couple items in the general government. As I said, our local government aid went up, and our fiscal disparities went down. So those contributed to that. One of the items that we did reduce, just based on, was our investment earnings. Our investment income, we did decrease that just because the way the market is currently. We wanted to be a little more conservative in what we were estimating to receive. As you can see, the fire protection did go up, and that's actually listed under the 3%, but it is within the department, it is at 3%. There really weren't any other significant, we reduced the transfer in, and so that's the money that we're taking from our capital savings that we're getting this year and putting it in as revenue. And then you can see at near the second line from the very bottom, the library fund revenue that was increased to $9,500, so that would result in the levy increase. Overall, our total revenues were down, or scheduled to be down 1.32%, but a significant portion of that is the 127 in the transfer in that we're reducing it. Under the expenses, the next page, next year under the election, it's not a election year, so that came down, even though the dollar amount is fairly insignificant when it comes to the entire budget, but it is in that department much lower. Both the general government, the recycling administration, building inspections, those all had staff increases as far as the cost of living adjustment, as well as there's a lot of other costs, both heating, some of our dues to the organizations that we belong to went up, fuel, materials and supplies increased as well. When you get down to municipal buildings, we did not, that again increased due to some of the costs, the overhead costs. The police department, that one, as you can see, jumps out as the highest increase. Almost 24,000 of that, or 24,000 plus of that, is the workers' compensation increase. There's one of the unique things about the police department staff increases is that they did get the 3% increase, but then with the employees, they have their step increase, and the police department, unlike any of the other departments, is weighted at the beginning of their entire step schedule. So the first 2-3 years, they get a higher step percentage than like the rest of the city. It's all even. It's even each year you move up in your advancement. The police department, they weight it heavier at the beginning. I'm guessing that's possibly for retention. If we can keep them here a couple of years, then they're more invested, and then it trails off pretty dramatically for the last 2/3 of their career here. So we do have several newer officers which accounts for a significant portion of that. The fire protection, as you can see here, the expenditures are limited to the 3%. That's our fire department under our contract with the other communities. Moving on to the next page, our streets and lighting did go up, and that includes our streets department as well as our street lighting. I did combine those in the actual budget. They are separate, but our street lighting did go up significantly with the energy costs, and our streets overall, I think they were actually, I'm sorry, forgive me, I think they were actually down a little bit overall. And a big part of that is we did have a retirement of one of our employees, Mr. Gardner from last year, and he obviously had been here with the city for 44 years, and having been here so long, the change in the wages for that position did decrease substantially. Both the parks and the cemetery, again, they had we've just over the past several years, we've started moving the staff allocation into those departments. And the cemetery, as you can see, because it's relatively a small department budget as it is, those staff changes or the staff increases resulted in a significant percentage change, but overall the dollar amount is not that high. The miscellaneous, that includes the fire relief as well as the debt service, and that went up between the two of those. It went up just the 3.88%. And then the capital outlay, this is what I was referring to earlier. We don't have scheduled for next year as high a number of projects or equipment purchases scheduled, so that we reduced that. Overall, the total expenses did go down, but as you can see there, the significant portion of that was due to the capital outlay being reduced, because we weren't planning on purchasing as much equipment. Sorry, you guys, it's on your screen as well. Okay, the 2023 budget as a whole, it comes out to $4,078,663. On this chart, you can see it actually dipped over last year, and this is just the general funds. This does not include the library. When we talk about the levy, the total levy as proposed was $1,457,703. The library levy was just under 195 for a total of $1,652,203, which ends up being a 3.78% total increase on the levy. Again, there's just a breakdown. The debt service was increased the last, I guess last year was the first time that our auditors had recommended putting the full amount in there. Part of our debt service is paid by the other communities that are contributing, that we provide service to, and that are contributed to the fire department or the fire station construction. So due to the increase in property values, as well as the reduction in the revenue, and we really tried to be conservative in our budgeting, the proposed general fund levy had an increase of $50,722. This is just the general fund portion. Again, this does not include the debt service or the library. But as you can see, it's stayed, the last 2 years, it's stayed relatively flat. Previous years over that, it has increased. But over the last 5 years, this shows you kind of where Bayport sits in the Washington County area. This does not include some of the smaller cities in the valley or the county that have very minimal, less than $1 million or less than even $500,000 levies. Bayport is right there at 22.4%, and as you can see, some of the cities that are growing have higher levy increases. A lot of that is supplemented or compensated by their growth. That's something that Bayport will be facing over the next, in the future as we are essentially fully built out. Our value will could continually increase, but we're not going to be able to absorb any growth by any levy growth or budget growth through just the construction growth. We're not going to have new construction coming in. We did have just this last year, we had a pretty healthy non-new construction growth. So there were, over the last 2 years, I know there was quite a bit of building construction activity on updates, remodels, that type of construction. One thing to note, Oak Park Heights, as you can see down at the left-hand side, they have a very commercial heavy district, as well as they have the King plant, which will be affecting them come 2028 when it goes offline, when that's decommissioned. But they are on the far end. And Lake Elmo, as you can see, they're I don't want to say exploding, but they've had a huge amount of construction. So they are adding thousands of homes. The tax rate, I know this one, this is just our tax rate as proposed will go down 13.5% from I believe it was 32 to 28, just under 29. This is just a number that most people, doesn't really mean a whole lot to them, but this is the city's portion of their tax bill that's attributable or allocated to the city. The tax impact, which is what most people care the most about, the median value increase, as I said earlier, was 15.5%. And so if the proposed levy is adopted, that would result in a $15.91, so $15.91, just under $16, actual dollar increase for the median home. Our projected median valued home next year in 2023 is $332,800. And I won't go through each of these, but you can see the different dollar amounts for the different home values. And each of those, the 2023 market value that's assuming the 15.5% increase in value that the county has said is our median value increase. So if your home is worth the far left-hand column this year, next year it'll be the 2023 market value, and then the applicable dollar increase. So the median, obviously the median is the median and not inclusive of every property, but it would be $16 approximately. And even if it's less than 900,000, at least the city's portion is, or 800,000 this year, the increase would be just over $53. So that's the presentation that I have. As I said, I know the council has some questions remaining. I'm happy to answer any right now if the council would like to take the time to ask questions or discuss anything. Otherwise, that is the presentation that I had prepared for this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very clear. Thank you. Any questions, comments from the council regarding moving forward this evening or another scheduled workshop to dive in deeper? What are the thoughts?
The only thing I would like to discuss, and I think it was me that was the one who wanted to maybe take a little more time, is whether we should be considering setting aside more money for future projects, which would, of course, increase the bottom line taxes for each home. So if you guys want to talk about that now, we could, and then we could come to a decision about if we want to just keep the levy as proposed or if we think we should increase it, at least for now, because we can always talk more later and reduce it, but we can't increase it after we settle it today if we did that. So I don't know how everyone's feeling about.
Even with our, slightly extended workshop, my gut was we had a little bit of unfinished business. I don't feel we really wrapped everything up. That's just my take on the situation.
Yeah.
one thing, Councilor Dahl, I believe you stepped out of the room near the end of the workshop. One of the things that we had discussed during the workshop regarding the pavilion project is that if it was kept in the CIP, it's in there now, that at the October meeting, staff was being directed to bring back, how is it worded? Essentially, staff was being directed to bring back something for the at the October meeting to approve the moving forward with the Centennial Village Green Pavilion project.
Bring it forward for us to vote on at that time.
If that was the one of the issues that you had a question about.
I guess, I understand where Michelle's coming from, but I guess I feel like we've had we discussed the levy, we went through it, he gave us all the different examples.
I feel like we never really talked about the examples, though. I feel like he gave them to us, and I've seen them, but I don't remember having discussions about where we feel like we should be.
Remember
No.
when we sat there and we went through each
To set
amount
it,
and,
but like, should we, like, I don't feel like we decided, should we be setting aside more money, especially after the discussions that we just had earlier today about how we really don't
I
have
guess-
enough to do all the projects that we want to do. So
I'm fine either way. I just know that I feel like we've had multiple discussions on it. We sat there, he presented different
I don't
amounts.
think Adam needs to tell us anymore. I think we as a group, I don't feel like I don't know where you stand on, like, do you think we should be setting aside more money? That's what I don't know, is how we feel as a group. I don't wanna have a whole nother presentation, I don't wanna go into any more details, I just wanna understand,
Okay.
should we be having, the $10,000 additional, should we be doing that in our levy so we can put that aside for parks or for street projects or whatever? We talk about saving, but then we always put it off to the next year to save more money. So if we don't start now, when do we start? So that was
No, I get
what I want to talk about.
Ethan?
I kind of agree with Michelle. I feel like last year we did it more in a workshop where we talked about what we were comfortable with, if we were adding anything to the levy, making it bigger. So I think we could probably use a little more discussion on that.
I mean, but believe me, this stuff isn't my favorite. It would be easy for me to say, let's vote and be done. I think we'd all rather, I won't speak for anybody else. I know I would rather be done, but I just feel like there are some things brought up that I get Michelle's point.
Yeah. I can go either way. I definitely more than willing to continue to meet. I do think that, Adam, you did detail where we were putting away the extra and to move toward those levels of savings in here. I think they were reflected on based on our current guidance. But if the council predominantly wants to regroup, we can do so.
Yeah, this isn't a reflection on Adam's work
No,
from
I'm
my
not.
standpoint at all. I just want to make that clear. So thank you for the good work you do. It's always appreciated.
One of the, I have to apologize just for the lot of what as we devise the department budgets, as we devise, work on how to make this work, because staff can come back. I mean, we are very cognizant of, what we think we need and what is reasonable. We're not, we are trying to be responsible stewards of the tax dollars. Until we know what from the county, until we get kind of the last information, and it was August 22nd, or I think I got it the 19th, or right before the August 22nd workshop. The numbers that we posed, or that we originally come up with, are just kind of requests, hopes, and I don't really ever share those with the council. We do, especially this year, we really tried to trim it in because we're obviously trying to be responsible. Up until that point, it's really hard to know. I mean, we're just kind of coming up with numbers of, we know what we think we need, but we don't know the impact that will have and what we can live without, or what we, how much of our priority is it to include that in the budget. it's unfortunate that that's the end of August, and then we always have our first meeting in, this year's, because of Labor Day, the second, week of September, but it doesn't give us a lot of time to work out those details as to, really get it honed in. So I'm sorry that it,
No.
again, this year didn't
It is not.
get it in front of you guys, the last weekend of August or the third week of August. We just don't have, I could give you what we'd like, but it wouldn't be the most up-to-date or current.
And what's always interesting in this process is that we get the different scenarios. If we put in 10 additional thousand or 20 or 30, 40, 50, we get a percentage of increase. But until those, tax assessments, come out to the individual property owners, it's kind of it's all floating. I mean, it looks like it's going to be $16 of an increase, and then it's, to some homes it's 250, to some it's 10. So that is truly always an unknown that makes this tricky. I mean, I feel like you've taken in my guidance of trying to put away every year to stack it up, but I think that we have an overwhelming desire to meet again and go over this one more time from a council's perspective. So have we settled on a date?
We have not. I know Councilmember Carlson said that she has a conflict on the 26th. I unfortunately apologize. I do have a conflict. I can't change on the 19th. We can pick any other day between now and then.
We have to have it before the 30th.
Would it, but that's what I was just gonna say, would it be helpful to just choose a higher levy amount as a temporary holding place so that you can complete your obligation to have a certain have it in as the preliminary one by a certain date, but we can always go back and adjust it lower? Because otherwise we're under the pressure to have to make sure we
That
all
would
meet.
be one option. We have until December 5th to, well, technically December 28th, but the truth and taxation, which we do need to decide tonight, which I've already announced once as December 5th. So I don't suggest changing that.
Right.
We have all of October, the remainder of September, all of October and November to have this follow-up budget meeting to bring it down at any amount. Or even, right now it's preliminary. The only thing that really that we can't change is the levy amount between the preliminary levy that's due September 30th and the final levy, which is December.
We can't
You
change
can
it,
change
or we
it.
can't.
We can bring it down.
Yeah,
I'm
you
saying we
just
can't.
said
I just wanted
Well, we
to-
can we can change everything except for that number,
Got
other
it.
than bringing it down.
Okay.
What I like this, I mean, quite frankly, September, the rest, it's tricky for me with kids' activity and stuff like that. It's getting really ugly for me here, finding a date that's gonna work for that. What would be your suggestion on, do you have a feel for maybe what we should increase it, to kind of build that in, and then
The
gives us some
highest
breathing room?
alternate levy amount was the additional 50,000 that you had in your materials. That, because I already, I have that, I can, if someone wanted to give me
What page are
a
they on again?
number, I
Very
can
last page of
tell you right now what it
workshop thing.
would be. It's really what the council would be comfortable with. I mean, as I mentioned during the workshop, it's hard for me to pick I don't want to say arbitrary number, but it's whether it's the proposed budget, which is kind of, I don't want to say the minimum, but that's the minimum that I feel comfortable with. And, that does maintain or increase some of it, but it's not everything that we could use. Obviously, I'm not going to propose, $200,000 levy increase. City could use it, but that's the taxpayers we'd all be out of a job.
What does it do, publicly, if we go with, the 6.92% increase? Where does that seen out in the public that this is our preliminary levy, even though it's just a holding spot for us, so we know we're gonna bring it down lower than that, is it gonna cause a disruption? That's,
Well, other than people, I mean, if people are seeing this, they're obviously
they
seeing
see that
the-
we're having this discussion.
But there is
doing it for a
the
reason.
chance, you know, there's no, whatever's decided tonight, there's no guarantee that it'll come down. So I don't want to give people the false
Well,
impression that
I don't know, I
it's
feel like none of
definitely
us
going
are.
to,
Yeah.
unless the council, I mean, and because I had posted the 50, the additional 50 somewhere around there, if not exactly that, would be, you know, the council doesn't necessarily need to know where that's going tonight, as far as which special fund it gets allocated to. As all the materials that you have in front of you, you know, they each have their own, I won't say any of them are overfunded, and not all of them are necessarily underfunded, but there's, you know, the 5-year CIP only goes out 5 years. I provided the park extended CIP, which goes up to 2040, but they all have, you know, each department or each special fund has potential expenses or costs out well past 5 years.
So Michelle, where were you thinking in putting the levy to? I mean, what was your thought?
I mean, it would almost be easier for each council member to decide what actual tax increase they were comfortable with. And I know it's again, the median, as the mayor noted, it's not, you know, every single person with that value house is gonna have that amount, because they may not be limited to the median increase in value. But that's the median. So again, on average, that's what the,
Can we just have that conversation right now? Because then I would be comfortable, you know, we could choose the amount based on how we all feel about if we want a different increase than what's presented in the proposed budget. And then we can just move on, and we don't have to have a whole nother meeting. You know what I mean? I mean, we can then later talk about where that, if we do have extra funds that we're talking about, where we want to put that. But, so right now, because that's the part that, like Ethan said, was missing, is we went, last time, we went through and everyone said, what are you comfortable with for the median increase? And that's, if we could just do that now, maybe that would help us move along. Are we comfortable with that? I mean, even, I'd be good if we just went with, you know, let's do the next level up, so the increase goes up by $6.80 for the median household. At least we're putting aside $10,000 for parks or streets, and to me, that's like not much. I'd go higher than that if you guys would be willing to go a little higher than that.
I think we can vote tonight.
I think so too. So where are you guys feeling? Does everyone want to stay with the proposed budget, and I'm the only one that wants to put aside more? Because if that's the case, then we just go ahead, you know?
I'm comfortable and confident in Adam's and the staff's proposal based on his, and they know me, they know that I want to save and that I want to do it in a manner that works for the departments and works for the city. So I'm comfortable with the proposal that he's put forth, but I'd love to hear from the rest of the council. So, John? Or anyone? I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. Yeah, this is always my weak point as a council member. This budget stuff. It is difficult with, you know, whether, you know, what's going on in our city, state, country, whether it's perceived or real in terms of inflation and how things have changed. I mean, you know, people's home values have gone up, so that helps out, but you have to have a place to live. So if you're buying something else, it's tricky. I don't want to in any way unnecessarily burden our citizens. So I'm torn more so than I normally am, because I get Michelle's point of wanting to start squirreling away a little bit for some of these other pet projects and be able to help fund other things. So, and at the same time, thinking out loud here, I value what our staff does highly, and when they give me a recommendation and a proposal, that carries a lot of weight with me. And it always has, so.
I think last year we ended up going higher than the proposed, didn't we?
We did I think the
The
second.
second one, yeah. So it's not, I mean, we appreciate it, and we know that you're always trying to do like the minimum you can, like you said, you would love to put a lot more in there, but you're trying to make it as slim as you can so that it is a small increase, and we appreciate that. So just not, so that I don't feel like we're like undermining your, proposal by suggesting that we maybe could go a little higher, because I feel like there's nothing wrong with what you propose, but there's also, we could save a little bit, so.
I guess I tend to echo Susan's, I mean, I get yours, but I guess I have ultimate faith in our staff. Plus, I've been on the council long enough, and I feel like there's never been a point where it's like, oh no, we don't have the money to do it. I mean, the staff seems to know what needs we have, and I get your point about putting money away, but I can't think of a year that I've been on it that we've had to struggle to figure out to do whatever projects we've had. I would be okay with upping it to the next one, just to, if you want to have that type of conversation, because like Ethan said, he doesn't feel like we talked about it, but personally, I'm comfortable with where it's at and what our staff has done. But
You have put in allocations though to the different departments toward the fire equipment in the future and the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fire equipment, because we've been working on that one specifically, kind of emphasizing it the last several years just because of the contract restrictions. That one has been set, so we haven't reduced that one. If they were just looking at, if any additional money was put in, my recommendation would be to put in the street reconstruction fund, just because that's what we have coming, we're the biggest gap in the funding that we have and the funding that we need is the street reconstruction. The issue is that even if it's 25,000 this year and it all adds up, it's not gonna, that extra 25,000 isn't gonna have us have enough money when we actually have to do the project without figuring out how else to pay for it. So I don't want to say it doesn't make a difference, but it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to resolve the gap. It'll make it less, but
I'm so
sorry.
I'm sorry. Do you anticipate that that's going to require bonding?
Probably, depending on when we do it, depending on which of those projects. We have the 4 different projects there. In all likeliness, we will probably have to issue debt in the next 5 years to accomplish one of those. But this isn't going to prevent us from doing that if it's 50,000. And even, it's, Madam Mayor, yes, very honestly, we're probably going to have to, if we want to do those projects in the next foreseeable 5 years, any of them, we probably should, because as we've been trying to do less and less and stop doing, is spending down our fund balance. Now,
Which we need.
you have to do it responsibly and be able to plan so you can make the debt payments, and just, I don't want to equate it to using a credit card, but you're assuming there's going to be an amount of interest, and that still will be cheaper than losing your investment earnings. I don't want to say, I'm not going to bankrupt the city, but spending all your cash, being house poor, being you have to do it responsibly. It's going to be a mix of over the next, well, it always has been, or it always should be, a mix of spending your fund balance, spending, bonding for, higher level expenditures. I'm not going to blame Matt, but he is trying to fix a lot of things that have never been fixed. We've got some water and sewer that are 80 years old. We've got things that it's just time. The time has come that the bills are due. And so no amount of budgeting the last 10 years would have necessarily prevented this, but unless it had been incredibly aggressive. And luckily Matt and I will give him a lot of credit. We are catching up as fast as we can. But trying to balance that, what's reasonable, so we don't want to overburden the taxpayers. And some of these things are even beyond the 5 years. I mean, that's the other factor is that we're collecting money from the residents that are here now for future projects. They may not necessarily enjoy the benefit of that. You know, we hope they do, but if someone's going to be moving in the next, couple of years and the project's 5 years off, we're trying to be fair to everybody, and it's just really a balancing all these different factors.
That's happened over the course of time too. I mean,
Right.
so
That's always
it's not like we just
battle.
started doing that.
No, this is just the way it is.
I'm prepared to make a
Well,
motion.
we haven't heard from Ethan yet,
Oh, okay.
right?
We have not. I probably hate paying taxes more than anybody. But I think even the second one down, it's basically doubling what we're at, $16 to $17. I mean, it's 32 total versus 16. To me, I don't see how that is that much for us. And I get the people on the big that's $52 difference or whatever, but even on the bottom one, it's like a tank of gas. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I'm advocating for 50,000. It's crazy that I even say that because, like I said, I don't like taxes going up. I don't like any of that. But this is on like a local level, and this stuff directly goes to our city. It's not like your taxes go up and people are spending it on stuff that you don't like. It's like this is literally to help our city. So there, I'm a little more comfortable increasing it a little bit. I would be comfortable at the second level, but I'm also have faith, like these guys said, I have faith in you that what you've proposed is fine too. But at the second level for that minimal amount, I don't see an issue with that. But maybe I get a bunch of flack for it, but that's just how I feel.
So what do you need from us now that you've heard all of our opinions? Would one of us need to make a motion about it, about the levy, and then see how it goes? See how we vote on it? I move to adopt a resolution for the preliminary levy for 2023, adjusted to meet the whatever. Is that what we
It would
need
be
to do?
on that levy
Dollar amount
line where it says levy, and then like the proposed
This
is
is
the
where I messed it up last year.
1652203.
Where is that? I don't know why I
Should've been in
can't
your-
find that.
Page 12.
I mean, if we don't know where the extra 10, 20, 30, 50 is to go,
Right.
Well, streets, we just talked about how that seems like the highest priority, so that or parks, to me, seems like the two things that we could decide on.
We just need to approve it. We don't have to decide.
We don't have to
exactly
decide
what
right
we're
this
gonna do with
second,
it
but I feel like we
tonight,
can use that
correct?
money somewhere.
Correct. The where it's being allocated doesn't need to be decided tonight. It should be decided at some point before
December.
the final. Right now, you're setting the levy, you're approving the budget, which is and the capital improvement plan, but where it actually gets allocated, because it all gets put in, like I said, the majority of it gets put into the unassigned funds in our fund balance. It's not the city council can change that at any time for most of the funds.
Okay, so are the three of you good with what it's been presented? Or does anybody want to go up at all? Just so we don't have to talk about it
Yeah,
anymore.
otherwise we're
I'm-
wasting time making a motion.
We're okay going up a little bit. If the three of you aren't, then let's just forget it and let's
We'll
pass
just
the
go.
proposed.
My motion was going to be to accept the proposed budget or the proposed levy increase and not increase it.
Not increase?
Just
Okay.
see what happens.
And then Connie and
I-
Susan are the same way, so,
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay.
Second?
so we're outvoted, so let's go for it. I'm not gonna make the motion then, someone else.
I'll
please
move
do.
to adopt a resolution, the preliminary levy for 2023 of $1,652,203.
thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. Roll call.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Dahl,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson,
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
That's all.
Second resolution, please. John, you're on a roll.
Let somebody else do that one. We have to have the dollar amount for that one out.
See, that's where it's
I
hard.
think it's just.
It's in the packet.
Move.
I found it.
I'll adopt a resolution of the preliminary budget for 2023, but where's my number?
It's in the,
Budget is-
there's no page numbers, so I can't help you.
Sorry, John.
Should be,
It's
on the resolution.
$4,416,663.
If that is correct, I'll accept Michelle's amendment to my motion or addition to my motion.
what is listed in the resolution? It's presented.
There you go. That's a good
Is
way to
that,
do it.
are you
Okay.
good with that,
You want me to
Adam?
start over?
No, I think that's all good, right?
It's up, I am clear as to what the motion's intent was. It was to adopt the resolution of the preliminary budget as outlined in the, as listed in the
This is
resolution.
outlined in the presentation
Okay.
submitted to us.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Nothing's
Thank you,
changed.
John. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dahl,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson,
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
That's all.
And then our third resolution, please.
I'll move to adopt a resolution of the proposed capital improvement plan as presented to us in our materials.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Oh, can I ask
For
a
2022.
question? I know I should have asked before he did that. So when you were saying we could, something about the next meeting, vote on, I mean, with him doing it like this, does Michelle, do they still have?
We wouldn't need, because the capital improvement plan is more of just adopting the plan for which projects, which equipment is going to be replaced over the next 5 years. A separate meeting, because no actual numbers, because the budget and the levy are now adopted. The capital improvement plan can be amended, throughout the year. As I said, when we get the drainage study, we're going to have to reprioritize things, and so we'll have to update it after we get that
It doesn't
information.
It doesn't
prevent-
affect
it
anything.
doesn't
It's all
affect the-
Okay,
that
I
other
guess
We're
item.
gonna vote in October to actually.
Okay, that's what I
forward
wanted to
with
make
that.
sure
Yeah.
that, I wanted to make sure I understood that we could still,
Cause the CIP has the $50,000 set aside.
Okay.
So.
that's all I want. So, did you make a motion?
I did.
I'll second
I think
it.
I did.
You did.
You did.
Sorry.
Adam,
Okay.
please.
Councilmember Dahl,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore,
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
That's
I
all.
would like to make sure we do talk further about the CIP though and some other things.
Does the council want to select a date now, between now and November, and now and Thanksgiving to?
Well, what's set up on our October, like, do we have a workshop before the October?
We were assuming that there would be one. I know we'd been working on the sign ordinance, as a potential one. We didn't have anything locked in. There's other business that, I know we will have.
I don't wanna have like a whole, like, separate meeting for it. If we can do one of those, like, put it in a workshop before the regular meeting, it would probably be better, since it's always hard to find a date.
And,
So, October or November?
Meeting is scheduled for October 3rd, right?
Okay, that's,
Yes, the 3rd is the next regular meeting.
That would work for me for a workshop.
Are we able, is anybody able to do 4 o'clock? Would that,
as long as I don't have
Okay.
that day, I could.
that'll give us a little more
We could do
time to make sure we get through it.
Thank you.
And we can, obviously, if there's any discussion that each council member wants to have questions answered, you have the materials, so please let me know. So October 3rd, we will plan on having that as the workshop topic, at least one of them. The other thing I just want to, again, announce is the Truth and Taxation public meeting will be December 5th. at 6 o'clock with the regular meeting.
Adam,
Yes.
did we just do something? Maybe we shouldn't have this meeting until we have the election, so that the council that's actually gonna be dealing with 2023 talks about what's gonna happen in 2023. Does that make sense? Like in January or February, should we be looking at the CIP instead of now?
Well, it depends on which aspect of the CIP you want to look at.
Well, I guess particularly, I'm
The-
looking at
the-
2023.
The regular
right now.
council doesn't, sorry, so you're saying after January?
Yeah, so that they're looking at, well, what projects do we actually want to prioritize in 2023? I feel like we could say that, but then when it comes to the council
Well,
that's
and
actually going to vote
they can
on
have
it.
that conversation still.
But why have it twice is what I'm getting at. Are we wasting our time? Am I sounding
Well,
weird,
That's
crazy?
Well,
it's a legitimate.
it's legitimate, but I feel like it's another step where we're pushing it off. If there's things that you really want to discuss or we want to discuss, I don't know, I guess that's.
I don't know that
I do
there's that
believe that
many.
we're still elected officials until the end of the year.
Yeah, we are, but I'm like, if we're making decisions about what's gonna happen in 2023 for projects,
But you gotta remember, they're gonna
That-
be coming in, whoever comes in, they could be coming in totally,
right, I remember.
so
not
I
knowing
just
what
feel like,
I don't know that we will have the
Okay.
the infrastructure, the drainage study ready to have all that work done by. Our hope is to have it at the October meeting, but that's still tentative. So I don't know that we would be able to discuss those as far as the major projects. And as was noted, there'll be work expected of the council between now and January, when the new
Sure.
council is seated. So I wouldn't put it off until then. It'll probably need to be updated next year, next spring. One of the other things that we're also working on is the water rate study. So that's something that won't be done by October. We might be able to get it done sooner. But there's a lot of other factors that will be impacting the infrastructure projects and the future capital projects.
Okay.
So I wouldn't put it off.
Sounds good. Maybe we were
Fair question.
gonna spend time on something that wasn't worth it. So, okay.
With that, I am done with the budget portion. So, Madam
Excellent.
Mayor, I turn back the.
Thank you. So that will take us to our city council liaison reports. So I'll start, Michelle?
I did not attend the planning commission meeting because it was my anniversary on August 22nd, and we already had a workshop, so that was enough. City council for one night. And I don't think Anderson Advisory Committee has met in a long time, so I don't know what's going on with that. But I have done a lot with the Bayport Community Action League, which isn't technically my liaison, but yeah, so Derby Days is this coming up weekend, and it's gonna be huge. The party in the park on Friday night is a replacement of what used to be called the street dance the last couple of years. The Legion is sort of the host for the event in terms of beer sales and all that, so they decided to do it at Legion Field, Carroll Park. So we're gonna have Tim Sigler Band and a bounce house and the dunk tank and fun games and a photo booth, and it's gonna be
so
a great
there's
time.
things for kids in
There is definitely things for kids to do, yeah. And if you feel like you'd like to volunteer to help the Bayport Community Action League that night, we could use some people to, help man the dunk tank and do things. We have a sign up, just, reach out and we'll figure out how to get you in on that. And then Saturday is a lot the same. We have all the same stuff we've always had, which is awesome. The medallion hunt, with the addition of the winner now will get a unique centennial medallion as part of their prize in addition to the $500. It's made of brass and it's handmade by Dieter Vonderer from Stillwater. And in addition to that medallion, he made us a silver one. It's a sterling silver, almost 2 ounces. And we're gonna have that in a silent auction right here at City Hall, starting at 9 a.m. until 1:30 is when we're gonna end the silent auction. So come and bid on that and look at the historical display, and they're gonna be selling the books that they just, Historical Society made a book about Bayport. It starts in like the 50s, has a bunch of photos. And so we got the pep parade, we've got the duck derby, everything down at the park starts at Lakeside Park at 4 o'clock. We'll have live music and a DJ and food and
That's on
fireworks
on
at
Saturday.
8:30 on Saturday. Yeah, so it's a 2-day fun-filled. And so I'll be hosting the duck derby again. So that's always fun to, I get to dump the ducks in the creek and Ben will catch them on the other end. So you can buy your ducks online and at Bayport Community. Actually, you can buy it at Woody's, Legion, NJ, Croydale, mostly for people who live there, but you can go on down there. I'm sure they'll sell you some.
And that's where the pet parade is?
That's where the
Right
pet
now.
parade will be again. Yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be fun. And I'll just hope it doesn't rain. Usually we get decent weather for derby days. So yeah, fireworks at 8:30 at Lakeside Park too, and those are like pretty incredible. You're like literally right underneath them. So if you're around, and also just a warning for those who have dogs that fear fireworks and all of that, it will be happening at 8:30 on Saturday, September 17th.
So Perro Park on Friday
Friday
night
night.
and Lakeside on Saturday.
Yeah, and then otherwise the medallion hunt is all over town. Pep parade is, Croydale City Hall is gonna have the display.
What
So
night is the band?
The Tim Sigler Band is on Friday night.
Right.
And then we do have live music. It's Donovan Gillette is gonna be playing from 4 to 6 on Saturday, and then after that we have a DJ so the kids can dance in the pavilion. Yeah.
Good.
And the ice cream, free ice cream too. Forgot about that.
That's good.
7:30 on Saturday night. Yeah, lots of fun. Go on the BCal website and there's the whole schedule there. So.
Thanks to you
Thank
and
you.
everybody on
Yeah.
Bayport Community Action. I think you guys do a
Yeah.
great job. So
Sarah Schroeder is rocking the party in the park this year, so it's gonna be huge. And then also Woody's is helping a lot too with that. I should give them a shout out in addition to the Legion.
Excellent. Great weekend. Thank you. Ethan?
We had a scheduled meeting, but it was canceled. They had a COVID outbreak within there. Doesn't sound like anybody was too bad off, but yeah, so I don't have anything. It's scheduled for this month.
Okay, great. I hope everyone's well. Thank you. Connie?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, and
Mayor, I think you attended
I did.
Little St. Croix for me.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
So this last month, several of us attended the groundbreaking for the new library project, which was fabulous. Congratulations to the library. Yeah, you were there.
I forgot about that.
And Michelle was there too. And great event, and so excited. And the library is currently set up here in City Hall for your needs in the next few months. Also did attend the WMO meeting on John's behalf. Everything, that's a great organization. They do just amazing water quality and conservation efforts. The one thing is that they did review the budget. The budget stayed flat from year over year, but Bayport's allocation went up slightly because of the new percentage adjustments, but nothing significant. I attended the fire relief meeting, the airport ribbon cutting ceremony of the new runway. So that was exciting. Great ceremony. That airport is kept like a golf course. The gentleman that's in charge of the management, kudos to him. It's beautiful. I did also go to the airport advisory meeting. We're seeing a similar number of complaints month over month. They're typically from the same households. There may be a slight change in that traffic, the traffic patterns, and people who are impacted because the runway did move slightly on the land, and so now there might be a slightly different flight pattern. But overall, the mitigation of the noise has been. I mean, they monitor it very closely. So. If there are any concerns, reach out to the MAC airport managers, and they will address your concerns. And they follow up with every complaint that does come in. So that was my month. So I'm going to turn it over to staff reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief Eisinger is at drill tonight, so he was unable to attend. Just a couple of things I wanted to note from his report. The August call volume was 118 compared to 99 in 2021. So it does look like it is back and the year-to-date call volume was 747 compared with 628 last year. So it does look like they have returned to pre-pandemic levels. A couple of other anniversaries I wanted to recognize on the fire department. Mike Bell, 32 years. Congratulations. Mike Gallowitz, 23 years, and Andy Swenson, 14 years. So we thank them for their service. And with that, I will call upon Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Our past events, Night Unite and Safety Camp, I just want to recognize Woody's, Mary Tickner, Brad Smith. For the 18 years that I've been here, they've been down there serving their hot dogs and cooking it up for us in the heat. And they donate a lot of their time and supplies to include paper plates, cups, silverware, mustard, ketchup. It all adds up and their time is valuable. I also need to recognize the Bayport Marina Manager, Corey, and the Commodore, Rachel, who helped serve, along with my volunteers. And that was August 2nd, as you might remember. August 24th, we had our ice cream social across the street here, and that was sponsored by Eckberg Lammers. And Mabel's gave us a fairly large discount on that. We had roughly about 60 people there. I didn't see any council members down there. Just want to remind you forgot that, so you missed out on your free ice cream.
I didn't forget.
So, upcoming September 8th, we had practical shoot. That was all officers. We joined with Oak Park Heights with our train the trainers, so to speak. So that's nice. So we save funds with our training as far as the officers that are certified to train and with their shoots. As Michelle Hanson, Councilmember Hanson mentioned, September 16th, 17th, Derby Days will have reserves and officers walking around. And I do appreciate everything that that group does as well. I've attended the pet parade when my grandmother's relatives were there, now my grandma's at Bayport, memory care as well. And so it's just great, from the duck races to the fireworks, and my reserves are generally down there. It's just a wonderful event. So thank you and everybody that puts that on.
Thank you for having the officers there.
Well, and that's their opportunity to just meet and greet everybody, and that's their main reason to be there. We've been working diligently, and you might have saw the paper, an inmate passed away, and what is assumed currently from the DOC's press release, Department of Corrections press release, is a overdose, and we've been working very hard on that death investigation. It's consuming a lot of our time right now. So that's currently what we've been doing. Our total, as of when I submitted this, our total ICR's responses to calls self-initiated are 5,797. And I stand for questions.
That is quite the volume. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for having your presence, specifically your presence out at school pickup and drop-off time. That's really near and dear to my heart, keeping kids and vehicles safe from any accidental interaction. So
Thank you.
And all of your staff for your continued work in that area.
Thank you.
Yeah, I forgot. It seems like it's been so long ago, but that was a very hot evening with the Night to Unite.
It was. It was a long day.
It was a very long day. So
Yes,
Good
and thank you.
safety
Thank you both. I saw
Yeah.
you
thank you
there,
very
and
much.
I know people are busy. Just had to give you a little bit of a shot
we
about
just-
missing out on the
we
ice
just
cream.
need a
No, I wanted
text
to.
reminder of things.
You
So.
reached out to me. I was ill with COVID, or I would have been there. So.
We had some adorable photos that are on Facebook if you want to see it, and some of the attorneys were behind the little faces. And it was fun. We had a pretty good turnout. So
Yeah, that's
Yes,
great.
it's
thanks
great.
again.
Glad you guys did that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up, Public Works Director Klein.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, obviously the summer busy season is winding down, but I'd just like to reiterate that we had a third seasonal employee this summer and it worked out really well. The weird thing is all our seasonals are older, and so 2 of them are actually retired and 1 of them works for the school district. And so we've had good luck with all that, and we'll be having all 3 come back next year. So we were able to do a couple extra things this year, having that third seasonal. One was sewer cleaning, certain areas that have some severe root intrusion that we have to do earlier than every 3 years, which is our normal practice. And then we've done some fair amount of ash tree removal, primarily in Lakeside Park and Barker's Alps. With that said, we have an Eagle Scout who's looking to do, or who wants to do, is doing a project in Lakeside Park. He's raising some funds to plant 20 potted trees in Lakeside. It'll kind of be like the same project that happened up in Barker's Alps. We paid for the Barker's Alps ones. It's actually the same scout troop that's planting that's going to be in Lakeside, but this time he volunteered as his Eagle Scout project to raise those funds. So we'll be helping him out. A couple of the other projects that have been going on is the box culvert project, which seems to be never ending. It's finally completed except for some restoration and landscaping work. So we started, I believe tennis will be starting garbage collection next week in the alleys again. So that'll help out some of the side streets, specifically by the school there. Ash tree treatment and removal. We did treat another 20 boulevard trees. So our total tree count for treatment is 80 trees. That includes parks, boulevards, and in the cemetery. We'll be doing that on a rotating basis, 60 of them 1 year, 20 the other, because it's a biannual thing. And then Seal Coat project. The city completed 3 parking lots, City Hall, the tennis courts, and then Public Works. It was a seal coat, and then they did a layer over the top to try and keep some of the loose rock that usually occurs with a seal coat project in place. We will be doing, we also did crack sealing on the Mayor Street, and then some out in Inspiration. And then our final project for the year will be it's called a slurry seal on the trails for the city parks. So hopefully that gets completed rather soon. I did want to mention to you that the mayor mentioned the helping with the kids crossing. We did have the flasher unit get hit on Highway 95, and we tried our best to essentially rig it up so that it would flash both of them. But when they hit the unit, it pulled some of the wires through into the master control panel and actually wrecked the motherboard on that one. And so we couldn't rig it up so that way. So now not only do we have a motherboard ordered, we also have a middle connection ordered, or a middle unit ordered. No ETA though on time for that to arrive. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
How does that work?
Yeah, who pays for it?
If it's criminal, so
His insurance.
It's an insurance claim. Yep.
So you knew who did it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right.
Thank you, Matt. Assistant Administrator Taylor.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, most of the items I've been working on were already discussed earlier on tonight's agenda. I do have a few reminders about elections. Absentee voting for the November 8th general election will begin on September 23rd. It can be done in person at the Washington County Government Center or by requesting an absentee ballot via the Washington County website, which will then be mailed out to individuals. The Bayport mayor and 2 city council seats will stand for election at the general election on November 8th. All Bayport residents vote at the new Bayport Fire Station, and polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Lastly, following the election, the city council is required to canvass and approve the election results. The county recently informed the city that this needs to be completed between November 14th and the 18th. So staff was recommending the regular November city council meeting be rescheduled from November 1st to the 14th. And I did send out an email seeking availability for that change. I know Mayor St. Or's, Councilmember Hanson, and Councilmember Dahl all have confirmed that that works for them. So I'm hoping Councilmember Gilmore and Carlson that also could work for you.
That does work for me. I just didn't get a chance to respond.
Okay, great. Because we have to report that back to the county yet this week. So if that's the final decision, we'll reschedule that for the 14th. Okay, thanks. That's all I have. I stand for questions.
Any questions for Sarah? No, great work.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentations tonight.
Thank you.
And Adam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. A couple items that I just wanted to update the council on. We already went over the budget discussion. We will continue the CIP discussion in October, but staff has been working quite a bit on that the last month since the last meeting. One of the other items that I've been working on just in the last couple of weeks is that we, under our Tif reporting, every year as part of our audit, we submit the Tif report, which basically reports all of our Tif activity to the state auditor. And because we decertified the Croydale Tif at the end of 2021, but the county had already calculated their certification and they'd already sent us funds, what they reported to the state, they reported that they had paid us the entire amount, even though we had paid some of it back and we never paid Croydale. Our auditors didn't note that in our report. They just reported the part that we actually paid. So it wasn't necessarily right or wrong, but there was a discrepancy between the state report or that we submitted and the county's numbers. And so we did have to amend that and refile it. So our financial statements will be different than what our Tif report is. It doesn't really have any impact other than someone will have to go back, if they're going back to historically look at the Tif numbers, there'll be another sheet explaining it. But that took a little bit of time with communicating with just because of the timing of the payments. We are still getting Tif funds this year because of when the Tif district was decertified. So next year we'll be ahead of this and we'll make sure that it's all in one report. One of the other things that we just learned at the very end of last week that I put in one of my memos, or actually it's in my report, County Road 14 and 5th Avenue North, we discovered, I can't say we were notified, but we learned that the county has requested a speed limit increase on the western portion of that from Stagecoach to 9th Street. And that it's going to go from 30 to 35. They had a study done after the bridge, through MnDOT, after the bridge, the Synchro crossing bridge was opened. And apparently, we haven't seen any of the data, but apparently it justified increasing it from 30 to 35. I know Chief Eastman contacted them directly as well. Matt got more information. And Chief Eastman was not supportive of that, and they appreciated our input, and we didn't really have any say in it, and they were disappointed that we weren't notified ahead of time, but it sounds like something slipped through the cracks where we learned early. That being said, luckily it is the farther west portion, and as it's the 30 miles an hour will be maintained as we get closer to Highway 95 and the more residential area. It's not going to change our enforcement of it. The 5 mile an hour will be enforcing it the same as we have been. Obviously, it'll just have a higher threshold. I know the police are very active up in that area with patrolling it. So for the public, when they see that, it was not initiated by the city. It was initiated by the county. We did push back on it, but it's...
And it has changed already.
Already, okay. Yeah,
Well,
they were doing the locates last week.
Well, all I know is I didn't walk way on the west part, but I was walking by 9th where it changes, and it said begin speed limit 30. So I assume that meant that it wasn't 30 prior to that.
It
So
changed this week, and I got an email.
okay.
I didn't know it was going to change this weekend either. So one of my officers said, "Hey,
So just for that 3 blocks or whatever at the end.
No, it's that whole length
No,
of the
from
park, like all of
ninth-
Barker's Alps, all in front of that is gonna be
From
35 until you get to the first
Oh, you mean where
street.
kids play?
Yeah,
All that?
Oh, wait,
So-
so from,
so if you're taking stagecoach and you're heading towards the river, it's that whole stretch until you get to, 9th is the first place you can take a right, that's where it changes to 30.
So
From the cemetery on.
Yeah,
is there, could we
Yeah.
put an addition, I mean, my problem is the only, I have no problem with it, other than the fact that when there's ball games and stuff there, there's
I was
people
just gonna.
loading kids up,
I know,
it's
it's
pretty
silly.
bad there. I don't know that we could go over and above what their signage is or something, but
and they already speed on that
Her
road.
head no
Irritating.
already.
She's, attorney
We-
is saying no.
Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Klein inquired about like sidewalk extension and all that.
Yeah, that would be nice, cause I walk that road and I gotta walk them.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Washington County did, they apologized for how we found out, but their last, just to give some background, the last time that MnDOT had done essentially a speed study on County Road 14, Fifth Avenue was like 1979. And so they just wanted to provide an update for that, which resulted, of course, in an increase. Washington County, we did talk about potential pedestrian issues, and they brought up the fact that there's a possibility of connecting the sidewalk from where it ends at Parker's Alps to, I think, where it starts at 8th Street, I believe. So there's a block section that's missing. All that really needs to happen is it would probably be a joint effort between Washington County and the city. And if we're in favor of that, doing that, we just contact them to attempt to get it on their CIP. They do like a 5-year CIP every year for road projects. So, and that they would be open to that with the possibility of grants, given that it's pedestrian. So.
let's
I
jump on
would
that.
love
If
that.
they're willing to go half seas or whatever,
Yeah.
split it is.
As I said, we
I've
just
always-
learned at the very end of last week, and so I don't want to say it's still fresh, but we are in discussions of how to try to regain at least some of the safety that we potentially will be losing from the increase. So,
I like that sidewalk idea a lot.
thank you, Matt. Sarah and I have been working with legal counsel on the Nature Center lease. I know that was something at the meeting in the 22nd, that there were some questions. We think we almost have it finalized. Just for the public's information, at the August 22nd special meeting, the city did vote to approve a short-term lease with Synchro Preparatory Academy. The Nature Center, some of the rationale was the Nature Center is incredibly difficult to rent out and has been underutilized. Sits empty about 345 days a year. And the cost for just maintaining the utilities is not recovered by the revenue from renting it. So as the city looks to determine how best to utilize it in the future, the council made the decision to, we were approached by the school to rent it out for some additional office space for 2 employees. So for the next 11 months, as soon as we get the lease finalized, that's the plan. At this time, there's no long-term decision made on the future of it, one way or the other, but it wasn't the city's intention to have a long-term office space lease at this time. Just wanted to give an update to the public on that, so hopefully that's resolved soon. Just wanted to again reiterate that October 3rd meeting, we'll be having a workshop to discuss the CIP, and then the regular meeting following that. So with that, I stand for any other questions.
Any other questions? Thank you for all the work to you and the team and the entire staff for the budget preparation.
I want to thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to extend my thanks to all the department heads and staff for helping with the budget. And we're not totally done, but we've made a lot of progress. So thank you, council, too, for discussing it.
Right. Any other questions or comments? With not, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ethan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.